Welcome, everybody, to the newest episode of the Amateur Theory Podcast. Today, we're going to do something a little bit different. If you've been listening to us up to now, typically the MO is we watch a movie, and then we kind of do a deep dive into that single movie.
But so now we've decided to stop talking about movies, and we've become a sports podcast now.
So, how the NBA, big news. No, we're just joking. We did watch a movie this week. We watched the new Bill and Ted movie, but instead of making the entire episode about that, we're going to try something different. We're going to kind of talk about the news as it pertains to movie news. So we are going to talk about Bill and Ted at the end, but we're also going to discuss the some upcoming movies, Tenet and Mulan. We're going to talk about the new season of The Boys, which is also a upcoming release. But before all of that, there was obviously some sadder news, but very newsworthy that I'd like to start with, which is, Chadwick Boseman met an untimely end due to cancer on the 28th of August. I'm sure this is not the first place you heard it from here. Not breaking news exactly, but still very relevant. And so I definitely wanted to mention that. Obviously, most famous for Black Panther. I think that what I saw most recently in was Da 5 Bloods.
Yeah, he was in Spike Lee's latest film.
Did you watch that?
Yeah, I did watch that. And he had his role was kind of smaller, but it was a significant part of the movie. But I remember reading that, and I, just like everyone else, I was shocked. It came so very suddenly, and I guess he had been dealing with cancer for 4 years and just had completely hid it from the spotlight.
I wasn't sure if I was just completely out of the loop, that I was not aware of any cancer when it came to him. But I guess you know more about it. He just didn't want people to know, or just didn't want to make a big deal out of it, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know the complete rationale, but yeah, he just hadn't shared any details, and it's just bizarre even, because obviously he had been in movies, for a while. Like Black Panther wasn't. Black Panther's just one of the biggest things ever. But he had obviously been acting before that. But it just seemed like the man was getting started, so it makes this a huge tragedy. Like, he seemed like he was an up-and-coming great talent. He'd proved himself, and I think everyone was hoping to see more of him. And unfortunately, he's gone now. And rest in peace.
I know that FX is re-releasing 42. Which is a movie about him playing Jackie Robinson.
The Jackie Robinson story, yeah.
Yeah, so, and actually, I've never seen that, but I'm definitely interested. Based on this news, I think it's would be timely, and I'd be happy to see more of him now that, obviously there's going to be no new projects. So, it's here at Amateur Theory, we obviously give our condolences, and it's been cool to see how people have been so big on kind of giving him the recognition that he deserves. So on to less, sad news. We have a couple big releases coming out in the next few days. And just for reference, we are recording this on the 1st. It might be a few days until this gets released, but it should be. Episode should be out before these theatrical releases. But we'll start with Tenet, because that's the big news there, is that it's been delayed so much, and it's finally coming out. The Christopher Nolan, the big movie.
Yeah. Well, it's already out outside the States internationally. It's been out here for roughly a week now, where I'm living. And I was checking the numbers the other day. I think it's made about $53 million so far, with the international market, which it's not a return yet on the movie's budget. But I think people were expecting for it to make most of its money stateside. So,
are you optimistic about that? Because I'm not. I do not think it's going to make its budget back. Just because of COVID, I just think that there's a lot of people who are just not interested in seeing movies. I mean, there's going to be people who go. I think I probably will. You've been to movie theaters lately? Because I haven't.
I went to the movie theater yesterday.
Okay. Tell me this. Are they doing, and I know you live in Korea, so it could be different rules. Are they enforcing mask wearing, or are they saying, oh, eat popcorn, whatever, you don't need to wear a mask?
You can still buy snacks, but I think the general rule is if you're like not eating or something, keep your mask on. And actually, the theater I went to nearby where I live, every other seat was like closed off. Like it was literally like just tied off with string. So you couldn't sit next to anybody. I mean, I went very early in the day. I was one of like 5 people in the theater, but.
And see, that's like I said, I haven't gone to the theater yet, but what I've heard when I've read about people's experiences who go is that the theaters are empty. Like it's not just because of social distancing that they're like mandating that a certain amount of people can sit. It's just that people are choosing not to go. So social distancing is not too much of an issue because no one else is in the theaters. I don't know if that's going to change drastically with Tenet, especially because, although I mean the one thing about Tenet that I'll say is that this, everyone was expecting this to be a big blockbuster, and unlike some of the other movies we're going to talk about later, they chose to go with a purely theatrical release. Like as far as I'm aware, there's no place to legally stream this movie.
Yeah, Nolan pushed very hard for this to be released theatrically, and to the point where it kept getting delayed and delayed and delayed again. And so that's the thing. If the money doesn't make its budget back theatrically, I'm wondering if they can just go like, oh, well, here it is on VOD now, and make more money back that way.
I mean, it's possible. I'm not sure what the return is on direct to streaming movies generally, because the only historical example I can really think of is what's it called? The Interview. And the Interview was not make his money back. It did not make as much money as it probably would have if it had a theatrical release. That being said, they were only charging $5 to stream it. So different than the current. We'll get into that later. But obviously when you go to the movie theater, especially if it's not just you, and it rarely is, right? Usually you're watching it with, as like a date or with your family or something. You can be talking upwards of $20, $40. And then in addition to that, I guess that wouldn't be pertinent to how well the movie does, but you're also spending money on popcorn and et cetera. It can be quite expensive sometimes compared to streaming, which, obviously you're paying a whole lot less. Do you think that if this movie bombs, are we going to see mass closings of movie theaters? Like, is this the last legs of, is this like they're putting all their hopes on this, and if it fails, then we're just going to see them closed all over?
I mean, it's hard to tell without knowing exactly when this whole situation is going to end. Because if this keeps going on, and Tenet does bad, and people and just companies decide to just release movies through VOD, and that's where they start making all of their money, I can see it kind of like really hindering the theater industry. But if we want to be very optimistic and say this is all over, let's say by the end of this year, I think theaters could get back to where they were, but that's thinking very, very optimistically. No, I could see this kind of, hindering theater chains. I don't know if it'll completely kill them, but if VOD's, I think, proven to be doing pretty well. Like earlier this year, the Trolls 2 film, like I didn't see it, but
different Trolls 2. For a second,
not
I was thinking...
not Troll 2, not
right,
Troll
Trolls
2, Trolls 2, like Trolls World Tour or something like that. The cartoon. I think that movie did, I think, better through VOD than the first one did theatrically, if I'm correct.
Okay. So I hadn't heard any news like that of that happening. So that's interesting that it did have success, because most direct-to-streaming movies, like most Netflix movies, you can't really see a box office because you get the movie,
the streaming service, and you can watch them. Or something like this, where it was the $20 to rent it, for however long. That formula, the movie proved to be pretty successful, it seems.
I wonder, though, and this is pure speculating, I have no idea, but I wonder if that was because it had no competition. Normally, when you release in the theaters, you're going to go up against many movies. And if we had a situation where there's many different streaming movies, right, all asking for the 20, 30, however many dollars, is that going to put a damper on? Because it is part of
that had to play a factor, I imagine, because what else came out back whenever it came out? Nothing's come out this year so far. Like, all the meaty stuff seems to be coming out now.
Yeah,
like, we got Tenet, we got Bill and Ted, and then Mulan later, and then Wonder Woman, yada yada yada. But earlier this year, there was we had Artemis Fowl.
and that is like, yeah, you have Artemis Fowl and like Hamilton, the movie version, and then you have like Defy Bloods. But these are all like streaming movies, right?
Yeah,
Artemis Fowl was meant to
be... you could just watch them if you had the service. You didn't have to pay the $20 entrance fee.
Yeah, so this is kind of Brave New World. I will be very sad if I'm of two minds, because I want movies to be successful. So if this VOD model is what can make them successful, then I'm happy that exists. But I'm worried that if it's too successful, it will kill the movie theater, which would make me very sad. I like the movie theater. I like a space that is just for movies. They say at the beginning, like, turn your phones off. We're in a darkened room. You're not supposed to be talking to people. Like, you have this giant screen. It's an experience that is just not the same as watching it at home on a streaming service.
Oh, definitely. And I'm not really going to say too much about this, but I did watch Tenet yesterday. We'll talk about that movie in depth later in a separate video. But like, I can understand why Nolan pushed for that to be a theatrical release. Like, you want a large screen for that film. And like similar films of that ilk. Just like some things you want, like a nice sound system, like a really large screen, because the visuals and the spectacle are just, that bombastic or fun or amazing.
And I mean, we are getting more and more advanced with 4K TVs and large screens and everything, and people can have surround sound. But we're not everyone has a home theater. We're not quite there yet.
No, so, we are most certainly not.
I totally understand what you mean when you're talking about that kind of movie. So I'm excited to see it. I'm excited to, we'll talk about it in depth. We'll do a full spoiler episode, but I guess we'll talk about that later. Now we'll go talk about another big movie coming out. So I think Tenet in the States is coming out on the 3rd, and this is coming out on the 4th. And we're talking Mulan. And I guess I'll just start by saying that I have not cared about any of the Disney remakes, any of the live action ones. I just I've not watched them. I don't care about them. But this one in particular, I actually am extremely interested in, because more than any of the others, this seemed like it was asking for a live action release. It also makes me excited that they allowed it to be a PG-13 movie. They said they're trying to make it more serious, so no sing-alongs. So,
well, and the other Disney releases, they just seem to be the same movie, but except now it's live action. Or in the case something like The Lion King, it's just
live action
CGI.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas this actually seems to feel like kind of a different movie, actually, like an actual remake of the material.
Yeah, so like I am totally excited for this, and I have been for a long time. That being said, when I first heard about this, I was expecting to see it in theaters, and now this is getting a limited theatrical release. I actually wasn't totally clear. I was trying to look at this up earlier. I wasn't clear of if we're going to get that in the States. So China is getting a theatrical release, and some other countries are getting theatrical releases.
Yeah, I think here in Korea we're getting one.
In the U.S., it is unclear to me if we're going to get a limited release or if there's truly not going to be any way to see it, except for this very unusual model where not only is it going to be $30, you have to be a subscriber to Disney Plus. So you have to subscribe to the service, and then you have the option to pay an additional $30 to watch this movie. And then that seems excessive to me. The $30 was already stretching the limits of what I would pay for a streaming movie. Like, we're already stretching it thin here. And then to say that in addition to that, you have to have our service is just, it's asking a lot from people.
Yeah, I honestly could see Disney doing the standard was $20 before. Well, now it's $30. I could see Disney doing something like that. But from a financial standpoint, I don't know why you would want to have to force people to subscribe to Disney Plus, because that seems like it would make people less willing to pay for the film. Like, it's just more hoops you have to go through. It's less accessible now. I don't know why they would do that. I mean, I'm guessing they're hoping that if someone subscribes to the service, then they'll just stay on it. But
yeah, I don't know how that's gonna go. Again, as much as I want to see movies succeed, I do want to see Mulan, and I'm not going to tell you guys to not see Mulan, but the angel on my shoulder and the devil on the shoulder. The devil on the shoulder, what he's saying right now is, I'm hoping that this movie fails. I hope that it flops hard. And I hope that it flops hard because of this model, which I never want to see replicated ever. I never want to see Netflix put out a movie and say, okay, it's on Netflix, but you need to pay another $30 to watch this one on top of your Netflix prescription. I never want to see this ever happen again. So I don't know. And then what's really going to be dumb is because Disney puts their movies on their platforms anyway. So you'll be able to watch Mulan on Disney Plus, ostensibly. I don't know if this is a permanent, I assume not. That eventually, if you just wait long enough, you'll be able to watch it on the service anyway. So I don't know how it's going to make people feel if they paid $30 to watch it on their TV, only for it to be available later in the exact same fashion, just on the Disney Plus again, but then now available to people who didn't pay $30. It feels like you got gypped a little bit. So I mean, we're going to watch it. Because we're also going to do a full episode on Mulan, just like we're going to do on Tenet. We're going to do a full spoilers episode. But, like I said, Devil on the Shoulder is not happy with Disney.
Yeah, no, the movie's not going to fail, though. And you know that.
Well, failure can mean...
Well, true.
Failure for Disney is not necessarily failure at all.
True.
Like the... Solo, right? Solo was a flop, but it made millions. So it was a flop
for Disney.
For Disney, especially for Star Wars. So it doesn't need to, completely fall on its face. It just needs to not be more successful than a theatrical release would have been. I don't want this to replace the theatrical release. So that's what I would hope for. And I mean, Disney has been having a little trouble lately in terms of its finances, but Disney can handle it's Disney, right? If any media company could handle not as successful as they think film, it's Disney. Disney has plenty in their coffers. I think they'll be okay, regardless of what I'm saying on this podcast.
That sentence just sounds weird. Disney's been having trouble with finances. Like
they've been one of the more hit companies in COVID. Among the industries, the entertainment industry has been particularly not doing great during COVID times, which is interesting, actually, because that doesn't necessarily, you'd think that people are probably starving for entertainment more than ever now, but I guess maybe cheaper entertainment. I'm not totally sure about I know I read that Disney has been having some financial issues, but I'm not sure exactly how COVID is causing it. I know it's causing it somehow, but in like a hotel business, it's more obvious. But I'm not sure. But with both Mulan and Tenet, so far, I think the reviews have been positive that have been released.
Have reviews for Mulan come out? Have there been like advanced screenings for that?
I almost want to check. Make sure I'm not making things up.
Yeah, because I know for Tenet, I think most of the major reviewers have probably seen it by now.
Do not listen to me.
Okay.
I was thinking of Bill and Ted. Bill and Ted got good reviews. Mulan.
Bill and Ted, Mulan, they're very similar.
But yeah, okay. So Tenet got good. Not necessarily amazing reviews, but it got solid reviews. But we'll give our own takes. I have yet to see the movie, so Jail is going to wait on me a little bit. And then I think for Mulan, you want to see it in theaters, and the theatrical release in Korea is not the 3rd.
Oh yeah. Oh crap. Yeah. Here it's actually I'm not sure. I know I looked up the date once, but I forgot it.
I want to say the 17th, but this is from me trying to remember what you told me a week ago. So I don't know.
Okay.
Probably double check that if you are trying to watch this in theaters in South Korea. It's I hope that the U.S. gets a theatrical release, because if there is, I'm probably going to make it a point to try to do that instead of seeing it, some other way through streaming, whatever.
Yeah.
That's an option for me.
That's the thing. I wonder. Well, I mean, Mulan's too close of a release date to Tenet for this to factor in. But if Tenet does well in theaters stateside, I wonder if that'll affect releases that'll come out like slightly later this year if they see like Tenet doing well.
I think it definitely would.
Yeah,
but I mean, shown that you can make money at the theaters.
Yeah, well, the thing is, it's Tenet though. It's like the new movie by Christopher Nolan. Like everybody wants to see that. Like he's just one of the most bankable like names in film right now. Whereas something like I don't know what else is coming out this year. Actually. I mean, Mulan's huge. Like Wonder Woman's huge.
Right. So I'm saying that big blockbusters might choose to go this route as opposed to the direct to video. I'm sure that a lot of the industry is going to be looking at Tenet to see how that does, and I'm sure it's going to factor into their decisions.
Yeah.
Talking about another new release coming up that we're both excited for, which is not a film, but it is season 2 of The Boys, which is also, I can't remember if it's coming out on the 3rd or the 4th, but it's coming around the same time as these movies. But we both really liked season 1. So are excited for season 2.
Yeah, I guess season 1 was solid. In fact, no, I remember watching season 1, and I don't know, I'd gotten used to the Netflix model by this point, because season 1 ends, and it's like, oh wait, yeah, I have to wait another year now to continue this story. And now, and this has always been the problem with TV shows for me. If I'm like caught up, like I forget everything by the time the next season comes around. it's like most of it's left my mind. I mean, remember, I think the big major points, but
they'll usually do some kind of synopsis, like last time on The Boys, and they'll have the pertinent bits brought up again. I know Amazon likes to do that. But this is interesting because this is an Amazon show, and they are not put the whole season out at once. I think they're putting out the first 3 episodes.
Yeah, I believe it's the
then
first
they're going to be weekly
episodes, and then they're going to release them weekly. Which I don't know what their rationale is for doing that.
I mean, one thing I think that is as fun as it is to binge shows, one issue with the Netflix model is that their shows are in the public consciousness much shorter. So I would say that Stranger Things and Game of Thrones were both massive hits, or Tiger King, right? Massive hits, right? To the level of like a Game of Thrones or a Breaking Bad is. But we were talking about Game of Thrones and Breaking Bad for years, as opposed to Stranger Things or Tiger King. Remember how fast that went? It's like blink of the eye, because the conversation ends once everyone's seen it. So everyone sees it. You can talk about it all at once. You don't have that kind of build up that you can get by doing a weekly release.
Yeah. Okay, I see that. Well, and also with something like Stranger Things, each season is very like complete. Like, like for example, like the first season of Stranger Things, before we knew there'd be like a season 2 or 3, like that was very much a complete story. Like that just could have been it. So like people watching, I think they're satisfied. They're not wondering they don't have to necessarily wonder where it's going to go, because everything is kind of wrapped up by the end, where something like Breaking Bad or Game of Thrones, which I've never seen these 2 shows, by the way, actually, but I'm imagining that it does the typical, like, the season ends, but like, yeah, it's a cliffhanger type thing.
Yeah. And that's what The Boys did. The Boys the story did not end in season 1. We're not going to get new villains necessarily, or I mean, they might add somebody, but the main villain is still the main villain. We're having a continuation of that story. And I guess just to fill you in, because The Boys is not quite as famous as Mulan and Tenet, so we didn't need to talk about what those movies were. But with The Boys, if you're not familiar, it is a twist on the superhero genre. And I don't think I've talked about it on this podcast before, but JL knows that I am not the biggest superhero fan. Not because they're inherently bad, just because I think that's the premise of the superhero movie is just so overdone. We're so inundated
with the new zombies.
Yeah. I mean, kind of, yeah. We get so many of their movies, so many TV shows. They're everywhere, and it just gets very samey to me. I can enjoy the occasional superhero movie, so
every now and then
I liked Wonder Woman.
That's like above and beyond, kind of, that stands out.
Yeah.
Above the rest.
Yeah. So not to say I hate all superhero movies, but I am a little tired of how inundated they are in society. And in the premise of The Boys, funny enough, is this exact situation. Everyone loves superheroes. In fact, it's even more superhero inundated, to the point of like absurdity, that everyone knows about superheroes. Everyone watches the newest superhero movie. Everyone has superhero action figures. And in The Boys universe, superheroes are real. They're real people. But the twist of The Boys is that you find out that the superheroes, aside from their public persona, are actually not such nice people. And so they actually end up being
straight up psychopaths.
Yeah. So the whole premise is that our main characters, our heroes in The Boys, I don't think this is too much of a spoiler because you find this out in the first episode, but they're just regular people, and the villains are the superheroes. So it is up to our heroes to figure out how to beat people with superpowers. They'll have they can go super speed, they can fly, they'll have like a impenetrable skin. And so to beat the superheroes, the thing I liked about this so much is that in a superhero movie, how do you beat the villain? Well, you use your superpowers. right? You use your super laser eyes and your strength, and then you just beat them up. And so it's very straightforward. In this, none of our heroes have superpowers, so they have to be creative in terms of how they beat a person with superpowers, and that just makes it infinitely more interesting to me. I'm really a big fan of the show, and very excited for season 2.
Oh yeah, same. I will definitely be checking it out when it comes out. Although I might do the thing where I wait for all of it to come out first, so I can just binge it.
You say
I'm
that.
too used to that now. I can't do the weekly thing anymore. I don't know.
Fair enough.
That's what I did with the last season of Rick and Morty. I just waited until it was all out. Yeah. Then I just
there's
watched
certainly
it all
there's certainly an appeal to that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be able to. I'm going to probably watch it right away, I think.
Yeah. Actually, what I probably will do is watch the first 3 episodes when they come out, because those are just coming out all at once. And then, well, if I do that, I might as well just do the week. I don't know.
We'll see. But all right, now we'll move on to our final topic, which is Bill and Ted Face the Music. And we both did watch this movie. Before talking about, and this is, normally we do in-depth kind of spoiler cast type of episodes. There will be no spoilers here, so don't have to worry if you haven't seen it. We're not going to spoil it for you. But before we talk about how we felt about the movie, I thought, just continuing on the we've been talking about in terms of direct to video and not coming in the theaters. This one was kind of interesting to me because it had a tiered pricing. So how much you wanted to spend would change what you get. So it was available to rent for $20. So for most of, go to Amazon or iTunes, whatever you download movies, you can rent this. They also had a version to buy the movie for $25, just $5 more. You can own it, which is kind of cool. And then they had a premium 4K version that included all 3 in the series. So you got 1, 2, and 3, and that was for $35. So I think this was an interesting strategy to kind of, I'm currently in school getting my MBA, and we talk about this kind of tiered pricing strategy. And so I thought it was interesting that they went with that route. It makes it so that you can self-select for your consumers based on how price conscious they are. Yeah. So that people who are a little bit more tight with cash can spend less, but your super Bill and Ted fans, they can go all in. They can get the 4K.
Want it all on 4K.
Yeah, and so you're. I thought that was smart on their end. I liked that.
And also, the movie does have a theatrical release too. I'm fairly certain.
Oh wow! Is it bad that I didn't know?
Well, I mean.
That says a lot, I think, in terms of how people are watching this. Probably, I don't know how many people are going to see this in theaters. Not that this is the kind of movie that, demands a theatrical viewing in the same way that
it's not Tenet. It's not a $200 million budget movie.
But that being said, when I saw the box office numbers for it, and I guess it hasn't been out that long, so it could make back its budget. But as of now, it's not even close. I
really? I haven't looked at the numbers, so I don't know.
I don't know. It's not to say that it's completely bombed, but it's not as doing. I can't imagine it's doing as well as if it had a theatrical release. I mean, totally. Not based in numbers, but just colloquially, or that's the wrong word. I can't think of what the word is. But how many of your friends are talking about Bill and Ted?
Yeah, I hadn't realized this movie came out until I started seeing reviews for it pop up on YouTube.
And I mean, we I think are fair to say both fans of the original. So we're the target audience.
I've grown up with the original movie, the first one, and I've always been. I actually hadn't seen the second one until very recently. It wasn't until I realized that this movie came out that I finally went, "Oh crap! Well, I really had to watch Bogus Journey now," which was actually really good, better than I thought it'd be. But yeah, well, the thing is with this movie, I know the script. I think, has been written for a while now. And I think they've been talking about getting this in the works and making it for a while. And it just came to the point where I think I kept hearing vague things like that, where I was just like, oh, okay, well, I'm just, whatever, I'm going to ignore it. And then it's like, oh, it's out now. It's like, oh, okay. Oh, all right.
I guess they wanted to capitalize on Keanu Reeves' big star power at the moment. He's, after John Wick, and he's going to be in Cyberpunk. He's kind of having a moment. So why not capitalize on a Bill and Ted? I guess how did you feel about the movie, having watched it?
It was pretty good. It wasn't fantastic or anything. I don't know if it's going to blow your mind, but...
Did you think the first one... Because I'll tell you, my thoughts on this was that it was another Bill and Ted movie.
Yeah.
And see, I like Bill and
Kinda.
Ted.
Yeah.
I like Bill and Ted. I wouldn't say any of the Bill and Teds are amazing, the best thing you've ever seen. They're funny. They're funny. They're kind of fun. And this was that again.
Yeah. I don't know if it's quite as good as the first two. But
I might like this better than the second one. I would say the first one's better though. The first one's a classic, but
yeah. But I mean, for what it is, this it's a Bill and Ted movie that's come out 30 years since the last one. I think it's better than it has any right to be. I mean, it's written by the original writers of the first two.
And they brought a lot of the original cast back.
Yeah, I mean, Keanu Reeves back, Alex Winters is back.
Death is back. I don't know. I can't remember the name of the actor, but
I want to say William Sadler. I could be wrong. He's in the Shawshank Redemption. That's all else. That's the only thing else I know about him.
They even have a posthumous George Carlin in there. So a lot of cool nods.
Yeah, which was actually because I think it's from a deleted scene from the original, if I remember correctly. Because it didn't look like they had done the weird Star Wars thing where they create a new General Tarkin or anything. It looked like
it was a posthumous rule. It was a recording of him. They acknowledged that he was gone, and it worked on multiple levels.
Yeah, and it was actually kind of sweet. Because I mean, obviously George Carlin isn't around anymore to reprise his role again. We do have a Kristen Schaal playing his daughter.
Yes.
And I don't know, I just find it amusing because she's in everything, I think. She's just in everything these days, which is fine. I like her.
She's funny.
It was just funny to see her show up again in something.
What did you think of the daughters? So I think how you feel about them probably says a lot to how you felt about the movie as a whole.
I actually liked them. 'Cause basically they were young Bill and Ted again. And it looks like that's the direction they got. Just just be like how Bill and Ted were in the original movies and just do that. And
did you think
they did a really good job?
Copies, though? I liked them a lot too. Yeah. But part of the reason I liked them, I think if they had truly just been the exact same character as Bill and Ted, that would have been a little boring. But they did, I think, put their own spin on it just by being they're not dumb in the same way that Bill and Ted are. So Bill and Ted are kind of they're very naive. They don't really think things through very hard. Whereas these girls, first of all, they have an encyclopedic knowledge of the history of music, which I don't think, Bill and Ted were fans of Van Halen and Bon Jovi, but I don't think they knew quite the history of music in the way that these girls did, which plays an important part of the movie. You get a lot of historical figures in this, just like the last one, but the last one, or the first one, had they were not necessarily musically related historical figures. It was just history for the sake of history, because that was part of the premise. But so I thought that the girls put their own twist on it. They still had decent chemistry amongst themselves, which is what made the first Bill and Ted so good, the first two, because the characters had chemistry together. And so it was charming. It was a charming kind of daughter-dad. I don't know. It worked. It worked.
Yeah, no, totally. It and yeah,
I will say I saw the ending coming in like the first 10 minutes. Like in the first 10 minutes, I knew how it was going to end. Not exactly, but like I don't know if that made it worse. Like I think it was fine that I knew it's not some huge twist or whatever. So
no, it's not Inception or anything.
Yeah.
No, but the movie, like when you were describing Bill and Ted just now, I think one of the words used was naive, and that's almost kind of how this movie feels coming out in this year. Because this,
fair enough.
Well, I mean, I think that's part of the reason to see it right now. Actually, this is a very like kind of feel good movie.
Mm-hmm.
And just, I mean, like it's got good vibes, and it's all about like people getting along together through the power of music, kind of. It's it's the feel good film of the year, and then it's like you look out into the real world, and it's like, oh no, oh dear, this is not reality, people.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you're looking for escapism, like this kind of is what you want. I think I could totally understand why people like would want to watch a movie like this, like in our current moment.
Would you ever recommend this to someone who had not seen the first two? I would be hard for me to do that.
Yeah, no, that would be hard. I do think you want to be familiar with the first two first, I think.
Yeah, I think if you haven't seen the first two, that a lot of the plot is going to kind of it's a simple plot, but it draws so heavily on those first two movies.
Yeah, no, it is a continuation of events from the first two films. Like,
yeah. So even though this is years and years gone, past, it's not. And I mean, obviously, every movie is a self-contained story in some sense, but it is totally a continuation of the story. It's picked up exactly where the last ones left off, just 30 years later, I guess. Yeah. But I would say if you plan to see this, if you're interested in it and haven't seen the first two, just watch them first. And I would recommend.
Yeah, this is certainly for Bill and Ted fans.
And the second. Before you could probably get away a little bit with watching just the first.
Nah, I'd say watch the second one too. Well, I think the second one's actually a pretty good movie in of itself. Like, it's a good sequel, but also like there are plot points in this film that like
directly
relate to the second one.
Yeah. So it's best to watch them in order. And if you are a Bill and Ted fan, don't worry, they didn't ruin Bill and Ted. It is Bill and Ted.
Your childhood is safe. Don't worry.
Yes. They do a serviceable job. And do you think they were setting it up for a sequel by having the new, what were their names? It was like Billy and Teddy, or the names of the girls and the daughters.
Theodora, I want to say maybe Ted's daughter. I can't remember.
They named them after each other, which is a very Bill and Ted thing to do, I think. But I was wondering if they were trying to make it like its own standalone sequel. I don't know if that will happen depending on how well this does, but we'll see. I think they could carry a movie themselves if they wanted to. I don't think they necessarily need the old actors, because like I said, they kind of have that charisma. Maybe not as big a release. Maybe it's like a straight to Netflix special or something. But I could see it happen.
I can see it happening too. I mean, I think this movie honestly wrapped things up fairly well. Like, if you wanted to end it here.
Where do you go from here? You'd have to come up with something completely different.
But it's one of those things, if this movie makes a ton of money, which I think you indicated it might not be. But if you did want to make a sequel, I'm sure someone could come up with something. But the movie, it doesn't do any like sequel bait or anything. It ties things up actually fairly nicely.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So yeah, it's a good movie. I'd say that I liked it. Seemed like you liked it. The only thing we would say is that if you haven't seen the first two Bill and Ted movies, watch those before you jump into this one.
No, yeah, definitely. You want to be familiar with the originals before this one, and
yep.
So yeah, we go. Watch Bill and Ted. It'll put a smile on your face.
All right. Well, I think that is it for today's podcast. If you are listening to us on YouTube, give us a like, give subscribe. Let us know what you think of this news direction. Did you like it? We can do more of these, or do you prefer the deep dives into movies? If you're on listening to us on Spotify and podcasts, unfortunately, no comment section, I don't believe. But give us a follow anyway. We should come up with like an email so people could email us. I think that's or something. But we do read every comment on the YouTube page. So until next time.
All right. Until next time, everybody.